All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, in today's episode, we are talking all about training for mountaineering in 2026. And with the turn of the new year here, I know many mountaineers out there are getting serious about their training and they're really considering how to kick off the year strong to make 2026 a serious year of adventure. And with that in mind, today's episode, we're not going to be talking about training ideas or theories or strategies or whatever may be. Instead, we are going to be talking a little bit about my online personal training for mountaineering, which we do at Summit Strength. For those mountaineers out there who may be interested in getting a bit of a head start on the year. So if you do have zero interest in ever really working with us or learning about how we go about things and what our online training for mountaineers looks like, you can probably skip today's episode. We'll be back to regular programming from the next one. But if you were looking at 2026 and you were thinking, you know what, this year you wanted to become the fittest, strongest, and most resilient mountaineer that you could be, this will be an interesting listen for you. So let's get into it. Now, to start, I want to be clear from the get go, and hopefully this makes sense for people who have already been listening to this podcast for a while. But I want to cover what mountaineers that we typically work with, and what mountaineers out there that we don't really work with so much through our online training. Because as much as we specialize in working with mountaineers, we don't claim to be well suited to every single mountaineer out there. And there are definitely many mountaineers who I know are just not suited to our training, who are just not compatible with our training. So I want to be clear from the get go. Now, typically, when it comes down to mountaineers, there are three types of mountaineers that we usually work with through our online training. Number one, and this is probably the most common, is a mountaineer who has a big climb in their sights, a big expedition in their sights, and they want to be doing everything possible to give themselves the best chance of a safe, enjoyable, and successful mountain adventure. Because when it comes down to mountaineering, as I'm sure you know, there are just so many things which are just uncontrollable. Weather, gear malfunctions, group dynamics, how you genetically respond to altitude. There's all of these different things in the world of mountaineering which you just can't really control, or only can control to a degree. But one thing you can control is your physical preparations. And we ultimately work with a lot of mountaineers who are leading into big expeditions and they want to give themselves the best chance possible of being physically and mentally ready for these adventures. Now, this happens at a variety of different levels for mountaineers. On one end of the scale, we do work with a lot of mountaineers who are kind of in their very early days of their mountaineering journey. And they're taking their first steps into mountaineering. And we essentially help them build up to be physically ready for maybe their first skills course where they can go out and actually learn the skills and be physically ready to pay attention and digest that information. We work with a lot of people who are stepping into their first climbs and taking that bridge from hiking to mountaineering. And we just help with a lot of people with that type of transition. On the other end of the scale, we have helped multiple people achieve big mountain climbs, 8,000 meter plus mountains, 6,000 meter plus mountains, or whatever it is. At the very most hardcore, we're currently helping one mountaineer towards the goal of climbing all 8,000 meter mountains in the world unassisted with oxygen, which is pretty insane. So on that end of the scale, we're definitely working with a lot of people doing some really serious adventures. And every other type of mountaineer in between. We work with people casually stepping into different adventures or whatever may be. And ultimately, we work with a big range of mountaineers who are leading into a big expedition. Now, the second type of mountaineer that we typically work with, and this is often goes hand in hand with the first one, is someone who struggles with some type of ache, pain, or injury, which is affecting their mountaineering or affecting their confidence to step out in the mountains. So common examples of this is knee pain or ankle pain or foot pain or hip pain or whatever it may be. And they are aware that, look, this is holding them back. This is reducing their confidence. This is sort of making them think, look, I just can't go out and do the climbs that I want to do. These things are really common because in the world of mountaineering, it is such an outlier of a sport in regards to physical demands. It is it's an extreme sport and we are pushing the body in very particular limits. And the tricky thing here is most of the information you'll find online, and a lot of the information you'll find when you go and work with a professional, and if you say, hey, I've got knee pain, hey, I've got ankle pain, hey, I've got foot pain, or whatever it may be, a lot of the information and advice you get doesn't quite line up with what you need as a mountaineer, what you need to perform for hour after hour after hour, of day after day, of heavy pack weights, of descents, of whatever may be. So we help a lot of mountaineers here, and we kind of fill this gap between what we call the traditional rehab approach, where you see a professional, they get you ready for day-to-day life, and they feel you comfortable there. And we fill the gap between that and you actually being ready for the mountains. So we work with a lot of mountaineers in that. And then also we work with a lot of mountaineers who, may not have just one single big trip. It's not like one expedition or two expeditions they're leading up to. Or they may not have an ankle pain or injury. They're essentially just a regular climber who realizes their physical fitness is holding them back. Maybe they're just sick of every single climbing season. They get to the end of the season, they're feeling really, really good. They get to the off season and they just end up, just dropping off their fitness or whatever it may be. And they have to start again. Or maybe they just climb all year round and they're in an area of the world where that is feasible and that is possible, and they just want training to help support that. So people who are just more regularly getting out there and doing cool things as opposed to specific end dates or whatever it may be. And in each of these situations, we've helped many, many mountaineers over the years. Now, how do we do that? Well, we do it through our online personal training for mountaineering. And specifically, we do it through what we call the online summit program. Now, before we get into that and what that's all about, I just want to briefly touch on who we don't typically work with. Because as much as I talked about 3 different types of mountaineers there's definitely a lot of mountaineers who may fall into these categories, but for one reason or another, they don't really line up with kind of what we do, or we'll get the best results from how we go about things. So there are a few different types of mountaineers that we definitely don't really work with so much. Now, number one is mountaineers out there who want the uphill athlete or an evoke endurance approach. Now, what I mean by that is someone who's maybe read Training for the New Alpinism, maybe bought one of the training programs or whatever it may be, and they just want to follow that type of approach. Now, there's nothing wrong with what those guys do, and they absolutely see some great success, and they've obviously got a lot of people who really enjoy that. But what we do at Summit Strength, we're not trying to just be another clone of them. We don't just regurgitate their ideas and pretend it's our own or whatever it may be. This is not the approach that we do. So if you want someone coming on board and you're like, hey, I just want someone to recreate that exact same process and follow those exact principles and those exact ideas, then maybe just go work with them because it's not what we do. It might sound surprising, but we do get a lot of people on our calls who are like, I just want this, and want you to put it together. That's not how we go about things. Number 2, who are not suited, mountaineers who are not suited to our training, is people who just want a pre-made program. At Summit Strength, we do not sell pre-made programs. We don't sell $20, $30, $50, $100 programs where you just get something that's already been made and it's kind of generic for whatever it may be, and you just go out and do it. All the programs we do are personalized to you as an individual. Even our lower support options, which don't have a huge amount of coaching support, they are all personalized to the individual, and they do come with an element of coaching to keep you on track. If you're sort of in this stage where you're like, I want to build up my training, but I'm just looking for something cheap and generic, and I just want something that I can pay $50 for and go out and do myself, probably go look somewhere else, because that's not what we do. On top of that is if you are looking for something where you can just do but never, ever interact with anyone, probably look somewhere else as well, because I know a lot of people like to operate like that, but us as Summit Strength, that's not quite what we do. Number 3, mountaineers who we don't typically work with are mountaineers who are really obsessed with metrics. So what I mean by that is just obsessed with numbers, heart rate zones, thresholds, all these testing, tracking every single little thing or whatever it may be. Many mountaineers I know out there are very, very numbers orientated. Many mountaineers out there love to track these things. And many, many mountaineers have an experience where that's literally how they go about their training. And they use metrics as the basis for every decision they make. Me, as a coach, I don't really care about these things so much, which may sound a bit weird if that's what you're used to. But I don't use metrics so much. I don't get my mountaineers to do threshold tests. I don't need everyone to do heart rate training. If someone wants to use heart rate zones, we'll definitely support that. But it's not like every single person has to have a tracker and has to be attached to Training Peaks or whatever it may be. And I don't make my coaching decisions off numbers, because I know a lot of people will use those metrics to make decisions around how you progress and this and that. That's not what I do. Sure, if someone likes heart rate targets, we will use that, but it isn't something I push towards everyone. And how I go about making my decisions as a coach isn't numbers based, but is communication based. And that is where that support comes in, because we talk and we chat and we check in and we make decisions on the individual as opposed to treating you like a machine and a number. So if you are someone who's listening to this and immediately you're stressing out, going, oh my gosh, if I don't do a threshold test, how am I going to do this? Or if I don't have clear numbers for everything, how am I going to do this? We're probably not super well suited together. And then finally, the last mountaineer that we don't work with are know-it-alls. Now, this may sound a little bit funny to bring up, but it does have to be said, because for whatever reason in the mountaineering community, there are quite a few mountaineers who fall into this category. The way I always talk about a training journey when I'm describing like a big top level training is I say a training journey is like baking a cake. In the sense of when you're baking a cake, you have your ingredients. You have your flour, your sugar, your butter, all of that stuff. You have your list of ingredients. If you put all of those ingredients together and you follow the recipe in the right amounts, the right time, with the right things, you will end up with a delicious cake. Alternatively, if you look at that recipe and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to take one or two of those ingredients and I'm just going to try and cook that. It's probably not really going to work. Or if you take half the recipe of one cake and then take half the recipe of another cake and try to cook it together, it's probably not going to work either. This analogy is kind of the same as training. Ultimately, if you're a mountaineer who's wanting help with your training, but you only really want help with one aspect of your training. Say you're like, hey, I'm happy with my cardio, I only want strength training. Or if I'm happy with my strength, I only want cardio training, or whatever it may be. Or if you come into a program and you're like, you know what? I kind of know better. Like, I know what I'm doing. I don't want anyone giving me advice. And you kind of feel like you know better than the coach you're hiring, then, we're probably not really going to be well suited together. Not to say, if you work with me, that you have to follow things like gospel, because everyone's an individual, got different preferences and this and that, but you do need to be able to have a discussion and conversation rather than just completely veer off and go on your own track or decide I'm not going to do this or I'm going to change this or whatever it may be. This may sound a little bit funny, but I'll tell you what, over the years, a lot of people have fallen in this category from the mountaineering community, which is strange enough. They're very, very, very important. So, with that being said, now we've talked about what mountaineers we typically work with. Now we've talked about a few types of mountaineers that we don't really work with. With that being said, for the mountaineers who are suited to training with us, how do we actually go about helping them? Well, the main way we help people in the mountaineering community with their training is through our signature online personal training program, the Mountaineers, the Online Summit program. Now, the Online Summit program is centered around three big pillars: training, education, and support. On the training side of things, we provide specialized and personalized strength and conditioning for mountaineers. What we do is we will have a chat with a mountaineer. We will treat them as an individual. We will consider their individual needs, goal, situation, preferences, access, time availability, all of that different stuff. And we will take that and create a personalized program, which will be a range of strength training, mountaineering specific conditioning, longer cardio, and recovery and mobility work. All this stuff I talk about on the podcast, I will take that and put into your personal situation, ensuring that we're covering all the bases that we need to get them in a fantastic physical position for their adventures, leading up to whatever end date they need, building up to whatever metrics we need, working around any injuries or any pains they have, and just making sure we're doing everything we can to get you in the best possible physical position. On the education front, as much as training is very, very important and we're aware of that, there are just so many other tips and strategies and tactics which I know can just make such a big difference to mountaineers for both their training to get the most out of their sessions they're doing and feel the best through a training journey, and also their time on the mountain. So we do put a big emphasis into providing education around topics around nutrition, both for training and when you're actually on your adventures, recovery, pain prevention, high altitude, mental strength and mindset, and a bunch of other things, making sure you have resources to help complement your knowledge and get the most out of each situation. And on the coaching front, we know that no training process is ever smooth. We know there are always things that come up, such as sickness, holidays, busy work periods, demotivations, flare up of discomfort, whatever may be, trip changes, a bunch of other things. So, through our online personal training, it's not just training, not just education, but we are in regular communication, having regular check ins to ensure things are flexible and adaptable. So we can ensure that the training and the workout is right for you in the moment, and it will keep you moving forward regardless of whatever's going on. Over the years, the online summer program has seen some really, really good success for mountaineers, and it has proved that there is another way of effectively preparing for mountaineering outside of the traditional approach that so many mountaineers have followed in the past, outside of that traditional endurance approach or that uphill athlete approach or the evoke endurance approach, which works, but is definitely not suited to every mountaineer out there. If you are a mountaineer who is at the start of 2026 and you're like, you know what? I want to make a change. I want to have see if I can make this year the best year possible for my training. I've got a big goal coming up. I've got an ache and pain, or I just want to be in a great position for anything that comes across my way. I would love to chat with you. If you want to find out a little bit more about this program and how it may help you, what you can do is go to summitstrength.com.au/mountaineer. Now, on that page, there's a big video which talks through the program in a bit more detail. And if that does sound like something you want to learn a bit more about, there's a link on that page. You can book a free call with our team where we can have a bit of a chat, learn about you, your situation, your needs, and your goals, and ultimately see if and how one of our options may be right for you. So if you want to find out more, go to summitstrength.com.au/mountaineer and we can take it from there. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening today. I really do hope this was interesting to a few people. I really am looking forward to chatting with a few mountaineers at the start of the year who are interested in getting a bit of help with their training. And I really do hope you've had a good listen. And next episode, we'll be getting back into the regular content and as we go. So thank you for listening. I will talk to you very soon. Bye.